Hey everyone, welcome back to TruthatWorks. It's the month of October. We're talking about when your leadership season changes, and we're talking about succession planning, developing the next generation of leaders. All of that's applicable to this discussion. I want to share with you a passage from Acts chapter 15 where I call it God's creative conclusion. It's an unexpected, unanticipated, unconventional story of how God can work things out as things go from one generation of leadership to the next. Let's look at Acts chapter 15, verses 36 and following. It says this, "And after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, 'Let us return and visit the brothers in every city where we proclaimed the word of the Lord and see how they are.'" Now I'm going to paraphrase the rest. "Now Barnabas wanted to take with them John Mark. Paul thought it best not to take him because he deserted them at Pamphylia, and there was such a sharp disagreement, so they separated from each other. Barnabas took John Mark and went to Cyprus. Paul chose Silas and went to Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches." So what can we learn from this situation? Number one, it is not unbiblical to have a sharp disagreement. We can disagree and it can be resolved in a way that honors God. And in the way that it honored God was this. Paul went with Silas and Barnabas went with John Mark. The ministry doubled the ministry efforts happened, and God was glorified. What else can Paul had to make a decisive decision based on his conscience. No one condemned Paul. It says right here they blessed Paul by not allowing John Mark to go with him, and no one condemned Barnabas for taking John Mark with him. So we can have disagreement, but we have to follow our conscience before the Lord as we make these decisions. What else can we learn from this situation? Well, it's kind of a trick question because it's something that happens outside of the context of this particular passage. I cheated, and as a result of some other studies, know there's a beautiful conclusion to this story. We learn later that Paul never gives up. Even though he had made a decision by conscience, he never fully gave up on John Mark. We know that he discipled Timothy and Titus. There's books written from Paul to them, letters written. In Paul's second letter to Timothy, he says at the end of his life, at the end of the chapter, at the end of his life, he wants Timothy to send a few things to him, his parchments, his belongings, and he makes one final request. "Will you send John Mark to me too? Because he will be useful for service." Where does this come from? What's going on? All of a sudden, he's back in good favor with John Mark, and John Mark, here's what we learn. The story's never over. Reconciliation happens. Grace happens, mercy happens, forgiveness happens, second chances happen. So when we're making leadership decisions, we can learn never to give up on it. That the God of mercy and grace extends that to us, and we can extend that to our people in our lives, to the people in our businesses, to our children, to our brothers and sisters, or any other situation where we're in a place where we have to pass the leadership baton. The story's never over. So follow your conscience. God can do beautiful things, have opposite opinions, and still be glorified to God, and never give up. Hope this challenged you as it does me. Lots to think about in this lesson. Look forward to speaking again next week. Have a great weekend.